What happens when a music legend sits down for what's supposed to be a friendly conversation about his career and later to be blindsided by a host determined to tear him apart on live television? In just 25 seconds, one comment would turn Denise Welch from a familiar daytime presenter into one of the most criticized figures on morning TV. And Rod Stewart would become the unexpected voice of everyone watching at home who had finally had enough. This is the day loose women crossed a line they could never uncross. Rod Stewart stepped onto the Loose Women set to thunderous applause. The studio audience rose to its feet as the rock icon smiled, waved, and soaked in the moment. He was there to promote his latest album, tease an upcoming tour, and reflect lightly on a career that had spanned more than 5 decades. Dressed sharply, in a tailored suit, Rod settled onto the panel sofa. Across from him sat the hosts of the day, Denise Welch, Kay Adams, Janet Street Porter, and Nadia Sawalha. At first, the atmosphere felt warm, almost celebratory. Polite smiles, easy laughter. The kind of opening viewers had seen 100 times before. But within minutes, the tone would shift completely. Kay Adams kicked things off with an easy question. "Rod, it's wonderful to have you here. Your new album is doing incredibly well. What inspired this one?" Rod smiled, relaxed, and at ease. "Well, I've been doing this for over 50 years, he said, and I still find inspiration everywhere. This album is about looking back on the journey but also looking forward. It's about gratitude for the fans, for the music, for life itself." The audience applauded warmly. Nadia leaned in next. "That's beautiful, Rod. And you're still touring at your age, which is incredible. How do you keep the energy?" Rod chuckled. "I love what I do. When you're passionate about something, age really is just a number. I stay active. I take care of myself, and honestly, the fans give me energy. Hearing them sing along, that's all the fuel I need." More applause. Everything was smooth, almost too smooth. Then Denise Welch leaned forward. Something in her expression subtly changed the temperature in the room. A faint smirk, a look that suggested she'd been waiting patiently for her moment. "Rod," she began, her tone coated in artificial sweetness, "I have to ask something a lot of people have been wondering." Rod nodded, still calm. "Sure." "Well," Denise continued, "you've had quite a few relationships over the years, multiple marriages, several children with different women. Some might say that shows a lack of commitment. It's an inability to settle down." The room fell silent. Kay shifted uncomfortably. Janet raised her eyebrows. Nadia dropped her gaze to her notes. Rod's smile faded just slightly. "That's a harsh way to put it." "Denise," he replied evenly, "I've been married 3 times, yes, and I have 8 wonderful children whom I love deeply. Not all relationships work out, but I've always tried my best, and I've always been there for my kids. But have you?" Denise pushed, her voice sharpening. "When you have that many children with different mothers spread across different countries, can you really be present for all of them? Or is it more about having your fun and moving on when things get difficult?" The audience gasped. Someone in the back audibly muttered, "Oh my God." Rod straightened, his jaw tightening. "Now hold on," he said firmly. "I don't appreciate that insinuation. I love my children, all of them. I've worked hard to maintain relationships with every single one. Parenting isn't easy, especially with a career that takes you around the world, but I have never abandoned my responsibilities." Sensing the escalation, Janet Street Porter tried to intervene. "Perhaps we should steer this back to the music," but Denise cut her off. "I'm just saying what people at home are thinking," she insisted. "You're a wealthy man, Rod. You've lived a life of luxury and excess." Denise pressed, her voice laced with accusation. "Meanwhile, there are single mothers struggling to survive. And here you are, multiple families, probably paying child support just to keep everyone quiet while you continue your rock star lifestyle." The panel froze. Kay Adams covered her mouth. Nadia shook her head in disbelief. The air grew heavy, tense. Rod's expression hardened, shifting from confusion to genuine anger. Paying to keep people quiet. He repeated, voice low but firm. What are you talking about? I take care of my children because they're my children. That's what a father does. And I don't appreciate you sitting here on national television painting me as some kind of deadbeat who throws money at problems. He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. You don't know anything about my life, about my relationships with my kids? Denise didn't back down. Oh, but we know enough, don't we? Her voice sharpened. We know you've left a trail of broken hearts. Engaged, moved on. We know you've had children in your 60s switch some people might call selfish. Having kids when you'll be too old to properly raise them. That was the moment. The moment Rod Stewart had had enough. He rose from the sofa, microphone still clipped to his jacket. The studio went silent, stunned by the simple act of standing. You know what, Denise? He said, his voice steady, controlled, but charged with authority. I came here to talk about my music, to have a respectful conversation, to connect with the people who've supported me for decades. Instead, you've turned this into a personal attack on my character, my family, and my choices as a father. And I am not going to sit here and listen to it. Complete silence filled the studio. The cameras kept rolling. The panel sat frozen, unsure whether to intervene. Denise, somehow undeterred, scoffed. Oh, so now you're walking away. Just like you've walked away from everything else in your life when it gets uncomfortable. Rod paused, then turned slowly to face her. His voice was calm, deliberate, but carried undeniable weight. No, Denise, I'm walking away because you're being disrespectful. Not just to me, but to my children, to the mothers of my children, and to anyone watching who comes from a blended or complicated family. You're passing judgment on people's lives as if you're morally superior. He held her gaze. You're not. Kay finally found her voice. Rod, please. We didn't mean. Rod lifted a hand gently, cutting her off. Kay, this isn't about you, or Janet, or Nadia. You've all been nothing but kind. But Denise seems to think that sitting on a panel gives her permission to tear people down, to humiliate them on live television. Denise crossed her arms defensively. I'm just asking the questions people want answered. No, Rod said firmly. You're asking questions designed to make me look bad. There's a difference. He leaned in slightly, his eyes unwavering. You could have asked how I stay connected to my kids despite a demanding career. How we make it work. Instead, you came at me with accusations. Judgment. You made it personal. You made it nasty. Janet Street Porter spoke up, measured but clear. Rod's right. This has gone too far. Denise snapped toward her. Oh, so you're taking his side now. I'm not taking sides, Janet replied coolly. I'm pointing out that we crossed the line from interviewing to interrogating, and it's uncomfortable to watch. Nadia nodded. We should have stayed focused on the music. From the audience, a slow clap begged a known person, then another, until the entire studio joined in, a wave of support echoing Rod's unspoken sentiment. They were clapping for Rod. Denise's face flushed crimson, hadn't seen this coming. So now I'm the villain. She snapped, voice trembling with indignation. I'm the bad guy for asking honest questions. Rod, already moving toward the edge of the set, turned back one last time. Denise, he said, calm but piercing. There's a way to ask honest questions with respect, with dignity. You didn't do that. You went for the jugular. His voice softened, cracking ever so slightly. My children might see this. Their mothers might see this. And what they'll see is someone trying to turn their father into a villain. For entertainment. He paused, letting the words hang in the heavy silence. And that, he added, quieter now but no less firm, is not journalism. That's cruelty. The room stayed silent. This wasn't just a celebrity storming off a set. This was a father standing up for his family, refusing to be torn down for applause. I've made mistakes in my life, Rod continued, his voice steadier now, resonant with conviction. I've had relationships that didn't last. I have regrets. But my children are not mistakes. Loving them is not a character flaw, and I will not stand here and let anyone suggest that it is. The applause swelled louder, stronger, unstoppable. The studio seemed to shake with it, a wave of support echoing every word he had spoken. People rose to their feet, clapping for Rod. Denise's face flushed red. She hadn't expected this. So now, I'm the villain, she snapped. The bad guy for asking honest questions. Rod, already moving toward the edge of the set, turned back one last time. Denise, he said, calm but piercing. There's a way to ask honest questions with respect, with dignity. You didn't do that? You went for the jugular. His voice softened, cracking just slightly. My children might see this. Their mothers might see this. And what they'll see is someone trying to turn their father into a villain. For entertainment. That is not journalism. That is cruelty. The room stayed silent. This wasn't a celebrity storming off a set. This was a father standing up for his family, refusing to be torn down for applause. Denise tried one last time to regain control. Rod, if you just sit back down, we can discuss this like adults. Rod let out a short, bitter laugh. Adults don't ambush their guests. Adults don't turn someone's personal life into ratings bait. Adults show basic respect, even when they disagree. And today, Denise, you've shown me none of that. Kay Adams spoke quickly, trying to de-escalate. Rod, on behalf of the show, I want to apologize if anything said today. Rod raised a hand, his expression softening as he looked at her. You don't need to apologize, Kay. You didn't do anything wrong. But I think it's best if I leave now. I'm not going to sit here and be insulted any longer. He unclipped his microphone and placed it gently on the arm of the sofa. Small. Final gesture, symbolic and deliberate. Nadia spoke up. Rod, we really do appreciate you coming on today. We're sorry this happened. I appreciate that, Nadia, Rod replied calmly. And I want to be clear to everyone watching at home. I'm not upset about tough questions. I've answered hard questions thousands of times. But there's a difference between journalism and cruelty, and what happened here today crossed that line. Denise stood abruptly. You're being incredibly dramatic, Rod. I was just trying to have a candid conversation. Candid. Rod's voice rose slightly. You accused me of being a bad father. You implied I abandoned my children. You called me selfish for having kids later in life. That's not candid, Denise. That's cruel. And what makes it worse is that you're trying to justify it instead of admitting you went too far. Janet Street Porter cut in sharply. She should admit it. This was out of line. Denise shot her an angry look. Stay out of this, Janet. I won't. Janet snapped back. I'm watching a guest be treated appallingly, and I'm part of this panel. That makes it my business. Rod came here in good faith to promote his work, and he's been attacked over his personal life. It's unprofessional. Even the panel itself was fractured. The cameras captured every tense moment. Rod shook his head slowly. You know what the saddest part is? I've watched this show. I thought it was about honest conversations, perspective, support. But today, it felt like a hit job. He looked directly at Denise. Did you decide, before I even walked out here, that you were going to tear me down? That's ridiculous, Denise snapped. I don't plan anything. I just speak my mind. Speaking your mind is one thing, Rod said evenly. Being needlessly cruel is another. And today, you were cruel not just to me, but to my family. And that's something I cannot forgive. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the studio. Someone shouted, "Good for you, Rod." Kay tried once more. Perhaps we can all take a breath, but Rod was already moving toward the exit. "I'm sorry, Kay. I came to talk about music. Instead, I ended up defending my entire life." "That's not what I agreed to." As he reached the edge of the set, Denise called after him. "Running away won't change the facts, Rod." He stopped, turned slowly, and spoke quietly but with absolute authority. "The facts, Denise, are that I have 8 beautiful children whom I love with all my heart. The facts are that I've been making music for over 5 decades, and I'm still grateful every single day. The facts are that I've lived a full life with triumphs and failures, just like everyone else. And the final fact is this: you tried to make me ashamed of my life today," Rod said, voice steady and unwavering. "And you failed because I'm not ashamed. I'm proud of who I am and what I've built. No amount of your bitterness or judgment will ever change that." The studio erupted. Thunderous applause, a standing ovation. In that instant, the narrative was sealed. Not a scandal, not a meltdown, but a line drawn clearly and publicly by a man who refused to let his family be used for entertainment. People were on their feet, cheering. Denise stood frozen, arms crossed, face flushed red. Furious, yes, but beneath it, shaken. This wasn't how she'd imagined it playing out. She'd expected resistance, maybe a clumsy defense. Instead, she had created a moment where the roles were unmistakable. She was the aggressor. Rod Stewart was the man who refused to be broken. Janet's street porter began clapping. Nadia followed. Even Kay, clearly conflicted, offered a few restrained applauses. Denise turned to her fellow panelists, disbelief in her eyes. "You're all applauding him." "We're applauding someone standing up for himself," Janet replied evenly. "Something you might understand if you weren't so busy tearing people down." Rod gave the audience a small nod. No drama, just quiet gratitude. Then he walked off the set. The cameras followed him backstage before cutting back to the panel. 4 women sat in silence. Well, 3 did. Denise, Seethed.K, ever professional, tried to regain control. Well, that was certainly unexpected. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Before the screen could fade, Denise snapped, sharp and defensive. "I don't understand what just happened. I asked legitimate questions." Nadia turned to her, disappointment clear in her expression. "Denise, those weren't legitimate questions. They were attacks, and you need to recognize that." "I don't need to recognize anything." Denise shot back. "If he can't handle tough questions, maybe he shouldn't do interviews." Janet let out a short, humorless laugh. "A few tough questions. You accused him of being a terrible father? Called him selfish, irresponsible, on live television, in front of millions. And you're surprised he walked out? He's a public figure," Denise argued. "His life is open to scrutiny, his music, his performances, his public statements." Kay corrected gently but firmly. "But his private family life, his relationship with his children, that's personal. And the way you went after him? That was personal. Too personal." The audience buzzed, whispering, shaking their heads, replaying the moment in real time. Denise scanned the room, confusion, anger, disappointment. For a split second, something flickered across her face. Doubt, perhaps regret. Then it vanished. "I stand by what I said," she insisted. Someone needed to ask those questions. "No one needed to ask them that way," Nadia replied softly. And now, Rod Stewart, a music legend who's given decades to this industry, will remember this show as the place where he was disrespected and attacked. She paused. Is that really how you want to be remembered? Denise didn't answer. She stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, refusing to engage. Kay tried one final time to close the segment. We're going to take that break now. When we come back. She hesitated. We'll figure out what we're discussing. The screen cut to commercial, but the damage was done. What should have been a routine promotional interview had become a viral flashpoint. One that would follow Denise Welch for years. Rod Stewart walked away with his dignity intact. Having stood up not just for himself, but for anyone ever unfairly judged for their personal choices. During the break, the panel sat in uncomfortable silence. Nadia shook her head. Janet scrolled through her phone, likely already seeing the backlash online. Kay spoke quietly with a producer off camera, her expression tense. And Denise. Denise sat alone at the end of the sofa, isolated by her own words, surrounded by people who had just witnessed her cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The worst part? She didn't seem to fully understand what she'd done wrong. Or maybe she did, and was simply too proud to admit it. Either way, the outcome was the same. She had turned a friendly interview into a battleground dance she had lost. Backstage, Rod Stewart was likely being reassured by his team. He'd arrived to promote music and left having defended his character. In doing so, he had shown exactly who he was. A man with dignity. A man with boundaries. A man who refused to be made small. No matter the size of the platform or the aggression of the interrogation. As the commercials ran, the studio audience buzzed, fragments of conversation floating through the room. Did you see that? I can't believe she said those things. Good for him for walking out. She should apologize. The reaction was unanimous. The audience was overwhelmingly on Rod's side. When the show returned from commercial, Kay Adams addressed the moment carefully. Before we continue, she said, I just want to acknowledge what happened earlier with Rod Stewart. Emotions ran high, and things were said that perhaps shouldn't have been said in that way. We hope to welcome Rod back to the show in the future under better circumstances. It was diplomatic, polished, carefully vague. It didn't name Denise. It didn't acknowledge that one host had pushed the exchange into hostile territory. It was corporate language designed to smooth things over without confronting the cause. Denise said nothing. She sat stiffly on the sofa, a tight smile fixed in place, clearly wishing she were anywhere else. The rest of the show carried on, but the energy was flat, awkward, forced.